new head coach, one of the kind of biggest teams, I guess, of the offseason, because they bring in Kirk Cousins, they make the free agency splash, and then they make probably the biggest move of the draft as well in terms of surprise factor with the Michael Penix Jr. Pick in the first round. So what do you expect to happen from the new head coach, Raheem Morris, and the Atlanta Falcons?
They should fully expect to contend for a division title, right? When you think about, they won 7 games last year and were still in contention for the division title in Week 18, with being the worst passing grade in the league as a team, the worst turnover-worthy play rate in the league as a team. Obviously, this is between Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke mostly. The third worst adjusted completion percentage. You're replacing what was the worst quarterback situation in the league with now a top 10 starter in Kirk Cousins. He's usually somewhere between the 8th and 10th best starter. Plus Michael Penix, obviously they got for the future, right? And he's arguably the most pro-ready passer in this year's draft if he needed to come in immediately and play if something was wrong with Cousins' Achilles or he falters for any reason. But that alone, look, their defense got a lot better last year, and I wouldn't expect that to be any difference with Raheem Morris in there. They had the third best offensive line in football, and you've really got a stacked group of weapons that now they added Darnell Mooney to. They probably could have used one more receiver, which was the argument for taking, say, Aroma Dunze in the draft. But just like the Jets last year before Rodgers tore his Achilles, you've got a team that had all the other pieces in place to win this division, and now you fix the worst part of it by adding a top 10 quarterback as long as he's healthy. I would fully expect them to contend for a division title.
Yeah, I honestly think the Cousins signing on its own puts them in the playoffs. Like, the Cousins signing puts them probably winning the division and being like a legitimate contender in that conference. The offense, the reason I think everyone was so frustrated last year is that you look at the skill position players that they've got, the Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, even the sort of lower down guys on the depth chart, and you're like, this is a playoff caliber group, but they have the worst quarterback situation in football, and obviously that's letting it all down. Now you bring in Cousins. The offensive line is really good. It's arguably, a top 3 unit in the NFL now. So the line is great. The skill position players are great. The quarterback is good. Maybe he's not great. Okay, he's 35 coming off an Achilles. That's at least an unknown variable here. And theoretically, you've upgraded the kind of offensive scheme and coaching as well by bringing in Zach Robinson, former PFF analyst, but also former, Sean McVay protege, those types of things. The offense should cook. It should be really, really good. And then you just have the defense, which still does look like a work in progress, but matters less, I think, if the offense is amazing. Like, if Cousins propels that offense to being one of the better units in the NFL, it doesn't matter that much that the defense isn't great. Maybe that stops them, making real noise once they get to the postseason. But based off the kind of baseline of this division, it shouldn't be enough to stop them winning it.
I agree, and I think you make a great point about Zach Robinson because it's the same offense that Kirk Cousins has played in for his entire career, right? The Shanahans and the Kubiaks, then Kevin O'Connell, and now Zach Robinson. Nothing changes for Kirk. He just has to get in there and get used to newer personnel and all that stuff, and you still have a great offensive line protecting him. And I think their defense is an interesting thing because they did play a lot better last year, right? They were second in the league in run defense grade. That was a big focus last year. Even though the previous coaching staff is gone, you still have good players, right, like Jesse Bates and even A.J. Terrell on the back end. They're just putting a big focus on the defensive line right now, right? If they get any sort of pass rush going, they drafted Braylon Trice and Brandon Dorless, guys who should get some young talent up there in the pass rush, even though they lost Calais Campbell. You're talking about a really dangerous team. If they get a pass rush going, now they've got a two-way go where their offense obviously should look better with the new coaching staff and with Cousins. And their defense much improved last year. If it takes another step with mostly the same crew other than Calais Campbell, you're talking about a team that should be the clear favorite, really, in the NFC South. I know the Bucs won it last year, and they're probably going to contend again this year, but they've got some turnover they're dealing with too, especially the offensive coordinator. The Falcons really are set up right to get this done this time around, right? There's no questions about their quarterback situation. Everyone's going to make it out like there's a question between Cousins and Penix, but I think we all know the plan is now to start Cousins for 2 years, or unless something falters, and then turn it over to Penix, and you've got this smooth transition, right? It was the entire idea behind drafting Michael Penix. But no, they've got enough balance that you would think even defensively, that they would contend. They should be the favorite for this division.